All right, all right, all right. So let me. We are live, April. All right. So let's just get started in a moment. Sure, we can go live in so many different ways.
We ready?
And then we are going to start. We ready? All right. So we're putting it on Facebook. I am tagging you now, and we are going to get started. I'm not even going to act like we are it. So let me do that. And let me come on back over to you. There's a lot going on here. All right.
Production.
So hopefully it's on Facebook now. I believe it is. All right. What? April, Dr. April. I'm so glad to have you on here, and anything I can do to support you, because you have been a supporter of me. So I want to definitely give it back. You have been on my podcast, and you have been on you were one of my first guests for my YouTube show, Kendell Lenice Live. Yes. So I appreciate you. Yes, I appreciate you so much. And also you've helped my family as an autistic strategist as well. But you have a new book coming out called No More Residue. I love that. We are speaking to Dr. April Lisbon Peoples. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we are all the way live, and my eyes are all the way live. I was just telling April, I got probably about 2 minutes sleep today. So pardon, my eyes are red. I said, but definitely we got to do this. So No More Residue. Let's talk about that. I love the title because it can take you anywhere. Like no more residue, like no more stains, no more stress, no more shame. Tell me about No More Residue.
Absolutely. So the book No More Residue was created by our visionary author, the amazing Crystal Cunningham. And it is a tell all that be all book of 17 brave and amazing Christian women who decide to tell that one story that has held them in bondage for so many years, the story that some people may know about, but not all people really know about, the story that is filled with shame and regret and denial and anger and frustration. And we decided as a team that we were just going to lay it all on the line because we were tired of those things from our past impacting our present. And once again, if it impacts your present, it will eventually impact your future.
Yes.
So in this book and in this process, and I will tell people this was a year-long journey. So this was not one of those processes where you create a storyline, you create a book, you hand it over to the visionary author and they send it to the people and then you have a book. That was not this process. As a collective body, as a collective group, we fasted together, we prayed together, we cried together, we got mad together. But more importantly, we got the book done and we got the words onto paper through the fears, through the frustrations, through the complaints. We got it done. And so that's what this book is really all about, is helping through our stories to help set other people free, help them to understand and to realize that it is because of God's grace and God's goodness towards us that first of all, he doesn't want us to continue to hold on to those things from the past and those residue. And two, and more importantly, that once we finally release it, it doesn't hold any shame to our name because
that's
we already
right.
told the story. We already told the story. So there's nobody else that can come back behind you and say, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? It's like,
you take
I just put it on paper. What else you got?
You take the bullets out the gun. You take it out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. I think that that's so important that you said that. And I just want to expound on that. Once you tell, and I say it all the time to people, especially women, once you tell your story yourself, then no one else can hold it against you. And that shame begins to just dissipate. It almost like it just that monkey comes off your back. I was a part of a compilation book with all women of God as well. So that's something that we have in common. And a lot of people don't see that now because it was some years ago. and I don't talk about it often anymore, but I was a part of, yeah, I was a part of that. And it was all prophetess and Christian women and women of God and pastors and ministers, and then Kendell Lenice, you know, as a woman of God. And at first I was just like, it's an honor to, you know, be a part of all of these amazing women telling, because ours was the same way, telling our story, a piece of our story. How perfect was it for you to be a part of that? And how did they say, hey, Dr. April, you know, I want you to be a part of this? Because I think it's amazing when women get together and tell their stories.
Yes. So since I know you, Kendall, I could be honest, I didn't want to do the book.
I believe it.
Yeah, because you know me. And I think because this was one of those books where I had to shut off all of the degrees, shut off all of the title, shut off, you know, what people know me as, you know, out on social media and out in public. And I had to really deal with who April was before all of the
Yeah.
titles, before all of the accolades. And so when
Just April,
right,
just April.
exactly. And so when the visionary
Mm-hmm.
author had was sharing it with us, because I was in another course that she was in called Crystallize Your Vision, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I listened to it and I was like, oh, this sounds like a cute book, but I didn't want to do it because I knew I had to deal with me. And honestly, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when we started it, and this process started, oh my Jesus, last year, December last year, when she presented it to us, I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't ready to deal with April. You know, I felt comfortable, you know, moving around through the lens of autism, my son's story, but I didn't want to share my story. I didn't want to share my truth because I had built such a great image, you know, through this autism space. I didn't want people to see me differently. And so, you know, it took a lot of prayer, a lot of fasting, a lot of cussing, and be like, God, is this really what you want me to do? Are you sure this is what I'm hearing you say? And when the visionary author came to me one more time, I said, okay, God, this is my time to tell my story. And I will tell you, like I said before, I didn't want to do it, but I am so thankful that I have done it because, you know, my story is about my journey as a college student having two back-to-back abortions, right?
Mm-hmm.
All before the age of 21. You know, a
Mm-hmm.
story, like I tell people, that's very taboo because
Mm-hmm.
if you grew up in the faith and you grew up in the church, people
Yeah.
tell you abortion is a form of murder. And
Yeah.
so, you know, and so it's one of those things where that lingered, you know, in my head for so long because that's what I was trained. That's how I was taught.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, my gosh, God, you know, if people saw me as a murderer, you know, of life, you know, then how do you see me? And so that's a part of my life and my story that I didn't want to know. It was buried in a grave deep down inside the grave. And I was comfortable with it because once again, it was my secret.
Yeah.
But, you know, when God is ready for you to tell your story, it reminds you of a pit bull with lockjaw. You know, he's not going to let it go until that story is released
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
not about you. It's about somebody else who is
Yeah.
out there that's going through that same mental anguish, that's going through that same emotional
Yes.
anguish. And even with an abortion, that may even be going through that same physical anguish that you
Yes.
went through.
Yes.
They need you to tell the story so that they know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And so
Absolutely.
that's when I decided, April, get out of your own stinking thinking. This is not about you. This is God's
Thinking,
story.
thinking. I
Yes.
love that.
Listen, this is a process. This is a
Yeah.
part of your process to not only your healing, but to help me someone else heal. And when I saw it from that vantage point, I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and write this story. Like I tell people, the title that you see in the book, If the Walls Could Talk, was not the original title.
Mm.
The original title was very professional because once again, I still had that component of me of what are people going to think about me when they
Yeah.
see this story. So
Yeah.
I felt comfortable creating that professional kind of a title because you know it was almost like a smoke and mirror kind of things for me. If people
Yeah.
see the professional title, they'll be like, "Oh wow, this is a nice, cute little story."
Yeah.
But let's see how far she's gotten. And I felt good with that. And God was like, yeah, no, that's not what I need from you. And I was like, what? I was like, God, why are you trying to have me do extra? These people
Yeah.
don't need to know my business. You know,
Yeah.
that was our
Yeah.
conversation. You don't need to know all of my business. And
Yeah.
like, that's not it. And so once again, my visionary author, who is, you know, one of my spiritual mentors, she was like, yeah, that title you got. She said, that's not it.
What was the original title? What was the original title?
Let it all fall down.
Which could be a lot of different things. It's
Exactly.
really misleading. Right. Right.
Spoke to
It could have
her.
been like, oh, well, did she have trouble, becoming a doctor at first, or what
Yes,
happened? Did she fail some tests? It could have been
yes,
so surface.
yes. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where I was comfortable at. And this
Mm-hmm.
book was not about us being at comfortable level of us being superficial. This was getting down to the nitty gritty. We were
Yeah.
getting down to the root of the problem. And
Yeah.
so, like I told her, I said, look, I said, I'm gonna be honest with you. And she was like, what you got? I said, when I was on those tables and in that position, I said, I used to do a whole lot of cussing. I
Mm.
love Jesus, but I used to do a whole bunch of cussing.
Come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I told her, I
There's
said,
a lot of cussing Christians. A lot of cussing
exactly,
Christians.
exactly. And I told her, I said, the only way I can write that story and change that title is that I'm going to have to swear. And she was like, is that what you were doing in that moment in time? And I told her, yes. She was like, okay, then the editor will take care of it.
That's
I said, that's what I did. And that's
let
what
me
I
t-
did.
let me I mean, you said so much. You dropped so many gems. No, not in a bad way,
I
but
know.
you dropped so many gems. And I'm just going to just rewind just a little bit. You said so many powerful things that can help you. First of all, let me start with the abortion. Do you know how many people have had abortions and they're holding that shame and guilt in their bodies? And if you know anything, and I know you do, but the audience, if you know anything about psychological damage and trauma and PTSD, that's held in your body. You cannot get that out until you release it and take that shame away. That's something that's always in the back of your mind, in your heart, and in your body. It's made up of who you are right now. And there are so many people out there who just had an abortion, who's had several abortions, at younger ages, in their 20s, in high school, college, so you are speaking to them. So if you're out there and you've had an abortion, you need to listen to Dr. April's story, because I said Dr. April. So that's not the end of your life. She went on to be a doctor and to help many. So let me just start there. You make the decisions for you at the time that you make them, thinking that they're the right decisions. But what happens with people is people tend to hold the past decisions against themselves. And it's hard for them to move forward. Even if you become professional and you do this and do that, that's still something that's lingering. And like Dr. April said, when you tell your own story, you take the shame away. So let me start there. Then something that I can relate to, as well as, shame, and we're talking about, but you being a doctor, I being a life coach and doing what I've been doing for 20 years. When you are in the professional helper business, the professional helper, you're supposed to have it all together. You're not supposed to have had any problems. You're supposed to be a certain way so you can guide others, so you can lead others, so you can teach others. And for some crazy reason, and I would like to say it's because they respect what you do, what we do, but for some crazy reason, they think that you're not supposed to have had a past. You're supposed to be perfect. Some people think that, but a lot of the pressure is also on us, on you thinking that. And then you said, coming from a Christian background, and abortions are taboo, and I know pushing things under the rug in Black communities and in Black families, in super religious families, you're not supposed to talk about certain things. You're supposed to just, that's your business, and other generations before us. Because even some of the things that I talk about, my mom's like, well, why do you talk about that? Why do you share that? And sometimes that's a way to bind us as well. When the people that you love are still alive and they, are hearing your story. So I want to ask you, the reservations outside of you and what you do and what people would think of you, and I gotta be that real, God, I gotta be raw, I gotta take all of the hair, the makeup, the titles, and all of that stuff off, and I gotta just sit here flat-footed and tell my story. Is there anybody in your life, whether parents, grandparents, siblings, that didn't know that you had the 2 abortions and didn't know what happened until the book, or until you started beginning the process to write the book?
Honestly, there was only like a handful of people who knew. So a lot of people who I was in college with, the majority of people who I was in college with, who I started my freshman year, did not know until the book came out. A lot of family members did not know until the book came out. I had like maybe one cousin who knew about it, and that's just because we were extremely close. And so
Mm-hmm.
she's, like my sister, so she knew. And then one of my best friends, she knew, but a lot of people did not find this out until the book actually came out. Because once again, people know me as the helper, people know me as the good girl,
Mm-hmm.
and so to to shift that imagery
Mm-hmm.
would have created a space for me that I don't think that I would have been emotionally or mentally able to handle back then.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a lot older and I've gone through a lot of more experiences, I've gotten a little bit more tougher skin to deal with when it comes to people pleasing and
Mm-hmm.
trying to fulfill the shoes and the imagery of how
Yeah.
people see me. But
Yeah.
back then, no, I would say there were only two people who even knew. Like, for example, like I tell people, even I told someone recently, the person who I had the abortion for the first time, he didn't find out until about 2 months before the book came out. So for over 20 years, he did not know, that he and we had conceived a child or anything of that nature. He found out 2 months prior to the book came out.
Okay. Pause right there. That's that right. Press pause. That's now that right there. So the person that you were pregnant by and had the abortion, you didn't discuss it with him or anyone. You just thought that that was the best thing for your life at that moment, and you went ahead and done that. There's somebody out there right now that's saying, I did the same thing, April. I did the same thing. So tell me how he found out. You said 2 months before the book came out. Did you have that conversation with him? How did he find out, and what was his response?
You know what? We reconnected through one of those social media platforms, and I wasn't going to share anything about the book. But you know how sometimes the Holy Spirit can kind of sort of nag you and
Mm-hmm.
tell you that
Mm-hmm.
before you can release this,
Mm-hmm.
this person needs to know. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of sort of how it all unfolded.
Yeah, because he would have been doing the math. He would have been like, okay, I knew her. I dated her that night after the movies. We went over here.
Exactly. And I didn't want that particular person to find out via social media, because when you're promoting a book, you have to tell stories online. I didn't want that person to find out via social media. I didn't want someone that that we were associated with, to bring the book out and say, hey, are you familiar? Did you know this happened when you and April were talking or whatever? Didn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So we ended up talking on the phone, and I just finally got the courage to basically say, hey, you know what? Let me tell you this story
Wow.
about way
Wow.
back when, kind of a thing.
Once upon a time,
Once upon a time,
I
and you
had
know
your
what?
baby.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, the reaction that I received was not the reaction that I anticipated. I expected a lot more anger, a lot more frustration. And now, mind you, that was like 20 plus years ago. But
Mm-hmm.
because I was still stuck in that point in time in history, that was the only script that I knew, was the anger and
Yes.
frustration. And so when it didn't happen that way, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I was the one to tell you the story and not you hearing it from someone else, because I think
Yeah.
that would have created more damage to
Yeah.
our relationship than had I not just come clean. And
Yeah.
even to this day, we still communicate. We're still cool with each other because, like he said, he was like,
Yeah.
you know what? He was like, that's back then. He was like, we're adults now. He was like, we weren't kids. We were kids back then. Neither one of us were ready. Could it have shifted the course of our relationship and our life? Possibly. But, that's back then. This is not who we are now. And when I
But
tell
isn't
you,
that something?
yes,
Isn't that
all the
something that,
melanin came back.
yes, yes, for melanin.
Breathe.
But isn't that something though, April? And this is so important, even when I talk to life coaching clients, and I know you speak to your clients, isn't that something when we hold that same story we tell ourselves? When you start to tell yourself that same story, you start to believe all the ins and outs of that story. You start to say what this person would have thought, how you would have felt. Like you have this whole script set up. And because that's all in your head, it's all in your heart, it's all in your mind, it's all in your body, and you haven't released it. So the only person that can kind of weigh in on that story is you. And when you release that story, so when you told him, did you feel like you were set free?
Yes. Oh, listen. Free. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, had I had known this 20 years ago, I would not have put myself through the hell for the past 20 years.
Look, y'all might be married right now. That's another story. Y'all might be married right now.
No, we ain't selling. No. Our lives are too
Wind it back.
but I would tell you, I think, for the both of us, we would have probably been on better communication terms over the years had I not held on to that component of the process. Because for me, it was more so, if he doesn't know this is, by me retaining my distance from him, I felt like, okay, he will never know this hidden secret. So that kind of sort of really impacted our relationship as we got older and stuff of that nature. Like I said, I'm appreciative of the process and the journey that I went through to get here. Because at this point, I really see how now God can utilize me to help empower and bless other young women who are going through this process, who are that high achieving, young lady or young adult, or even, woman who's like, if people see this side of me, what will they think of me? But it's your scripted story. You're
come on.
Anguish for yourself. And so now that the script, now that I chose to take control of the script and the narrative, now I can rewrite that part of my life, rewrite that part of my history, part of my story. Because first of all, one, I'm no longer on the abortion table. Two, I have now learned how to speak to myself in a more positive light and not be consumed and condemned about people pleasing and how what people will think about me. More importantly, like I tell people, my record speaks for itself. I don't need other people to tell my story. I need to activate my own voice to tell my story my way, because there's only one Dr. April J. Elizabeth. You can try to emulate me, but you can never duplicate me. Oh, come on.
You know what? You ain't telling nothing but the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And I often, even on, I think on Instagram yesterday, and I continuously say this. So if you follow me, you know this. Tell your story. It's so important that women share their stories, men share their stories. Tell your stories, because your testimony is never for you. It's for someone else. And sometimes when it's a personal story or shame is attached to that story, you hold on to that story and you have difficulties within your life, and not professional life, personal life inside. And again, I can't stress this enough. You hold trauma in your body. You hold shame in your body. You cannot be your full self until you release it. You don't want someone to say, oh yeah, I remember when, let me see if she messes up. Let me see if he messes up, because I'm gonna hold this, just in case. Just like, it just reminds me of the foolishness of Real Housewives of Potomac, when Monique held that binder of all these, right, exactly, tabulated binders to share someone else's quote unquote truth. We found out that some of the stuff may not be true, but people do that. And they hold it until they can use it against you. And then you're living with this little thing in the back of your head, like, if I say this, let me not say this, because then that might be a lead way into whatever business. But it's so important to tell your story. You got to tell your story, because it can heal you and it can release the shame. I know we're winding down, but tell me two things. What are some of the other stories we might hear in this compilation? And tell people the importance of sharing your story.
Absolutely. So as far as the first question, some of the other amazing stories that you will learn about will be things related to soul ties and being in relationships that entrap you and create a space where it makes it more challenging for you to build and have whole satisfactory relationships. You are going to read some stories. I can think of one right now, from the prison to the palace, where one of our co-authors share their story about being in a particular kind of relationship that led them to be having to go to prison. Time. You're going to hear some stories about suicide, some issues related to lust and same-sex relationships. There is just so much powerful stories by powerful women throughout this book. And I will tell you, even if you've never gone through this story, there's going to be something in it that will have you thinking about, wait a minute, this chapter resonates with me. I can think back, even though I may not have actually had an abortion, but I can think back to, where I questioned God, where I really asked myself, is God really there? Does he really want his best for me? Because where I am in life is not manifesting what his word said, kind of thing. And that's what you people have been saying consistently, even in reviews, plain and simple. I see myself in every single chapter. So although you may not have lived the story, but there's something in every single chapter that will resonate with you, that you or someone else will say, I know this, I feel this, now it's time to change.
Yeah.
Now, as far as telling your story, woo, that's my favorite part to talk about.
Yes.
One of the things that is so important in you telling your story, as Kendell has already said, it helps to set you free and to release you from the past shames and the trauma. But one of the things that I have been going through, throughout this process of writing this book and understanding why it's so valuable to tell your story, it reminds me of truth. And so everything that we go through, like the lessons that we learn, is like a seed, right? So when we plant a seed, you're expecting some kind of fruit, you're expecting some kind of harvest. But before you can get the fruit and before you can get the harvest, you have to nurture it and you have to nourish it. So when you choose to keep your story hidden from the rest of the world, you're not nourishing that seed. Because when you think about the trees that are outside, they are providing, a living space for animals. They're providing food sources for us. They're giving out from within. And when you choose to hold onto your story, you're not serving the people that you're called to serve. By you holding onto your story, you're keeping them in the same bondage that you're trying to get yourself out of, but yet you're still complaining about being in that bondage. So this why it's so important for you to tell your narrative your way, because I don't know about you, I don't want somebody else telling my story, because then start adding more these and thous and hims and ha's that wasn't even part of the original script. But because they're
going to use creative, they're going to be creative liberties.
Exactly. And it's like, no, I don't need you to tell my story. I went through this and it's my time to share it. And so that's something that I try to encourage people, activate your own voice. Stop allowing other people to hold you as the puppeteer and control your storyline. They didn't go through it. They don't know the process that you went through. So it's your job to tell your story your way. And so I would encourage anyone, if you have a story to tell, don't hold it any longer, because it does not help you. It doesn't help you to heal. It keeps you, like I said, in a place where you are doing so many scripted narratives that if you were to sell the narratives, you would probably be out of debt right about now. Because I know I had 20 years worth of scripts that I have recreated, and changed around, and not one of them was accurate based on what ended up happening 2 days before the
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
So the sooner, and that was another thing that I realized, and found value in telling my story my way this time, is that it helps to, it helps to open more doors for you. And regardless if you're trying to go into business, professional, whatever, it helps to open more doors for you because you don't have that weighted bondage behind you. So now you have more opportunities in space to encounter the new that God has for you.
Because people want to hear the real. We are in today's world is totally different from what it was 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago.
Exactly.
And people are about authenticity. People are about taking the shame away. Like, you're not going to hold nothing over my head. I'm free. People are talking about therapy. People are talking about mental illness. People are talking about abortions. People are talking about suicide attempts. People are talking because they found out that when you tell your story and when you talk about the things that you've been through, it helps not only heal you, but it heals other people. I remember just years ago from that, I'm reaching 50 mark in 6 months. And I remember back in the day, I used to be so tight-lipped because it wasn't just common to share all of your truths or all of your business unless you were talking to close friends, but years ago, I just started just being just who I am. And, not that I've always been who I was. So let me change that. Sharing, just not to my friends, but to people who need to hear it, and, about perfection, and you don't have to be perfect, and you can have this type of past, or you could have done this or that, but, God still loves you, and we still see you, and I think, April, and I know for sure that you are seen for who you are. And I truly believe that you will get more business. You will be more visible because you are releasing that shame, and people can see April. Yes, we know you're Dr. April, but people can see April. And we all know in business, people do business with people that they like and trust. Yeah. And when you share your story, they trust you because they are you.
Yes.
And I just think, just tell the people, I know, you got to go, but tell the people where they can get this book. And I got to definitely get my copy for sure, but tell the people where they can get this book and leave them with a gem about shame.
All right. So, of course, I got to promote. Here is a copy of the book, No More Residue. So you can either purchase the book on Amazon. It is uploaded to Amazon and to Barnes and Nobles at this point. However, if you want to get your autographed gold signature copy, because I have the gold pen, because I'm in the status.
That's right.
20 and beyond. You can order your copy of my book, No More Residue, at www.aprilJlisbon.com. That is www.april, like the month, J Lisbon, Lis as in Sam, B as in boy, O, N as in Nancy.com. So that will be autographed to you. It will be sent to you with an amazing thank you note, just to celebrate you for wanting to release the residue. Because as I continue to tell people, now is the time to let go of the past, because it's not serving you. If it was serving you, you would be much further along than you are today. So if it's not serving you, it's time to finally release it without the shame, without the guilt, without the complaints, without all that other baggage stuff, that the devil tries to implode on us, and we accept the gospel.
Yeah.
This is one of those books that will help you to release it. You may be throwing the book around every now and again, because I've thrown the book around a couple of times for people like, girl, what you mean? Child, no, you really kind of thing. But that's the kind of book that you want. You want to be able to be actively engaged and actively involved in every page of the book. And that's what this book is all about.
Yeah, I love that. And Toni Braxton, as we know, a few years back, she shared her story of abortion. And I think the correlation is so powerful because her son was autistic too. And she blamed herself having an abortion. Her having an abortion on her son being autistic. In her book, Unbreak My Heart, which became a Lifetime movie. Toni Braxton is one of my favorite people. And she grew up in Maryland, and she was a preacher's kid. So that stigma on not doing that, and just quickly, is that something that you thought about with your autistic son as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you feel there was a punishment?
Honestly, I did not think about it until I actually started writing the book.
Wow.
And then it got even worse as, I have, everybody knows me for my oldest son, but I also have 2 other children. And both of those children have significant food allergies. And so a lot of the things that I ate with my first son, both of my younger children are allergic to. So I was confounded and compounded that, oh my gosh, God, was there so much trauma in my womb that not only, did it create a space where my first child was autistic, but it also gave weight for, opening the door for my 2 other children to have severe food allergies that are life-threatening. And so all those things, really started to come to a head as I started writing the chapter, because that was the only traumatic thing that I had happen to my body.
Yeah.
Those two abortions. And so you have a child who's autistic plus two children who have severe life-threatening food allergies. That's
Yeah.
only trauma. So yes, I understand exactly what Tony went through. You know, you do feel like had that happened, would the course of my life,
Yeah.
who I identify as mom, you know, would that be different?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what I
Yeah.
will say is I'm thankful that that was not, you know, the case, because had it not happened the way it did, I would not be where I am today. I would not have
Come
a
on.
story to share. I would not have I would not
Come
have
on.
the amazing kids that I have to
Come on.
push me to do better. So
Come
although
on.
that was the narrative that I could have retained, you know, I would not be where I am today to be able to bless other people had it not happened the way it did. So
Come on.
I'm thankful for it. Wasn't thankful back then,
Absolutely.
but I'm thankful for it now.
But you know what? Everything comes full circle and everything happens for a reason. It's so cliche, but God knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows exactly what he's doing in your life, April. And I'm glad that he chose you to tell your story and to help heal other people. Thank you so much, April. I appreciate you so much. And anything I can do, and anything I can do to support you, you know, I will. I know you got to get your mama,
Yes.
you know, take your mama. But thank you so much, April. Have an amazing day. And y'all go out and get that book. Go to her website, get that book so you can get that gold copied signature. Not copied, that actual signature with that gold pen. So get your book definitely and support April and everything that she does. And if you have an autistic child or you need help with an autistic child, please reach out to her in that way as well. But this is April, period. And she has a story that's just like yours. So get that book. Thank you so much. This is Kendell Lenice live. We're all the way live everywhere. But thank you so much, April. Be safe.
You too now.
Remember, guys, you are a star, so don't allow anyone to dim your shine and don't allow anyone to shame you. All right.